of grace, where things would change, and maybe they take up the cross high again. The valley of grace was never the same after he had died. The love that.
Welcome to the Valley of Grace podcast, helping women reclaim their power, soul, and identity so they will know they are enough. And I've got a special guest with me today, and his name is Ricardo Wilkins. And I just want to say welcome to the show. And then what we're going to do, Ricardo, we're just going to start right off with you telling the audience your life story.
Wow. Well, thank you, Katina. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It is a pleasure, and look forward to sharing, my story and, just whatever I have to, share with your listeners.
Yes, you're very, very welcome. I'm excited.
So I'm from Maryland, the Washington, D.C. area. Lived there my entire life. Large family that's from that area, still lives in that area. Just like a regular childhood, for the most part. I didn't get in too much trouble. I had the opportunity to get in trouble, but my parents, they were stricter than, I would say they were stricter than my friends' parents. So
really?
it limited my the opportunity, my exposure to situations where I could have, really changed my life. And my dad was also very school and education oriented. He grew up, like a lot of people in, low income homes, but he was encouraged and inspired to self-educate. So he had a real appreciation for education. So even though I didn't want to, he made sure I studied and, went to college and, make sure I didn't make sure I didn't just play basketball all the time.
Got you. Okay, to have something else to back that up, just in case if that was the direction you were going, you had like a plan B if that didn't work out, so to speak, right?
Yeah, exactly. He just knew the value in it, and the value as far as not just like the future of what I did in the future, but also just seeding my mind with information and different ways of thinking and seeing the world, which I didn't appreciate at the time, but really paid off for me years later. And so, regular childhood, but one thing that always defined my childhood, and that way I wasn't aware until I got probably very recently, was that I was just always, I would say just scared in a way, scared to be seen. And I just stayed in my comfort zone. I was very quiet. Even like, I mentioned I played basketball.
Right.
Even on the basketball court, I didn't fully express my full potential or my full capabilities a lot of time when I was playing basketball, because it was like always, just like this weight on my shoulders that I felt like was holding me back. I remember
do you think it was like before you go on, do you think it was like anxiety mixed in with like insecurity issues or different things like that?
Yeah, I think, I realized this is something I probably discovered over the last 2 or 3 years. I think for a lot of people, there's this moment in our lives that kind of shape and define how we see ourselves and how we see the world. And for me, it wasn't anything that traumatic,
it wasn't.
But when I was 4, I fell out of a car. I got thrown out of a car.
Oh, wow.
I was fine. I was safe. I was actually in a blanket. So I had a scratch on me, but it was still very, jolting to, it was very early in the morning. There weren't any cars on the road. So I was grateful for that. But I was, scared. And I went home. So that was one incident. Then that combined followed that day, my mother took me to preschool. And I remember telling the other, students there, or preschoolers, what happened. And I was kind of excited, like, this happened to me, can you believe it? And I'm okay. And they said I was lying. And they actually told the teacher that I was telling a tale. And the teacher kind of scolded me for lying.
Really?
Yeah. And that kind of I think I didn't realize that and realize this until very recently. That kind of just defined my life in a lot of ways, as far as just not wanting to be seen, not thinking I had a voice, being scared in certain situations, or
Yep.
scared to just, step out of my comfort zone. But yeah, so that really, but I went to college, the University of Maryland. Just did, I did very average in school, got out of school, got a government
Right.
job, like a lot of people do. And then I just really, I just stayed, I went from job to job a little bit. Then I got a job for like 18 years at the US EPA.
Right.
And well, all those, you're probably talking about 20, 25 years. I never stepped out to really take on positions or employment that stretched me. I did everything I could to do to what I thought was keeping me safe, right?
Yep.
To stay comfortable, just to, I can tell so many stories. I give you one quick one. I got a job, and I actually didn't have a job at this time. I got a position. I can't recall what the position was, but I got there and I literally left. I walked out after about an hour or two.
Really? After about an hour or two, you were gone, huh?
I literally, and I didn't tell. It's so embarrassing to talk about now, but and I didn't tell anybody. I just left. And because as I got there, as I start learning more and more about the role, I was like, I can't do this. I just felt like you putting me out there too much.
Yep.
So, and I didn't have the courage to go talk with, the employer or management about how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I left, I just literally walked out, and they called me later that day. I made up some excuse that I got sick or what have you. So that's an example of just how I just stayed safe. And I didn't have a job at that time.
Gotcha.
But then, so then I found a job at the US EPA, which paid okay. Wasn't that challenging. And I just stayed there for like 15, 17 years. Well, about 14 years when I kind of like, wait a minute, what I realized. So maybe this is about 4 or 5, maybe about 8 years ago now, 8, 9 years ago, about 14, 15 years into this position, I saw my friends' careers advancing, and making a lot more money than me. And it kind of just dawned on me what I've been doing my entire life. I just realized how these decisions that I thought was keeping me safe, that I was protecting myself, was holding me back. And I just kind of like, oh my God, I was like, what have I done? Because I was in my, I was in my mid-30s at this point, and I hadn't developed certain career skills to advance, and I was just like, what do I do? Like,
I do? I just want to interject just real quick.
Sure, yeah, please
finish, because I definitely want to hear the rest of it.
Yeah,
maybe think about. I'm just going back to when you told your classmates about what happened with the car, falling out and being okay, and letting them know what happened. And it's like I know, like the specialists, they always say, once you have some traumatic event, one of the major things that needs to happen right away after the event is to have a sense of safety and connection from other people. So it's like you express yourself to your classmates, letting them in on what had just happened to you. You know what I'm saying? This traumatic. So at the time, you might not have even, might not even like ascertain just how like traumatic, and how bad it could have been. But it's like, wow, let me tell you about what happened. And then when they dismissed it and invalidated you and then told the teacher about it, it's almost like it seemed like you created like this safety net around you. Everybody else is not safe, and I cannot, if I express myself, I'm going to be invalidated. They're not going to believe me. You see what I'm saying? And you built a world around it.
Yeah, I literally got chills. You just describing that. I've never heard anyone describe it that way. And did introspection work. I never thought about that aspect of it.
Mm.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. And
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and
Yeah, the
even
Holy Spirit was giving me, as you're
yeah,
talking, and I
yeah,
kind of just
exactly.
mentioned that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because like I said, I know they said the first, the time that's closest to the incident is most important. So depending on who we talk to, we're going to be securely attached to them. It's going to determine what type of attachment style we use, because depending on what that person say, it's going to either be one of like 4 different attachment styles that's going to go on. Because even though we have our main attachment style, sometimes it changes according to who we're in conversation with. Because like if it's a person that's totally unsafe, we can and traumatic to deal with, we can attach to them like in fearful avoidant, or it could be avoidant, or it could be anxious attachment style, where sometimes we feel safe, sometimes we don't. And it seems like that's probably what happened to you. And then you got the secure attachment, which is obvious, but it seemed like that anxious attachment, like right now they're not safe for me. So it seemed like your whole it seems like your whole bubble was around that incident. You see what I'm saying? And the decision you made later, I'm not going outside of here. I can play basketball. But if I interact with them, then possibly the same type of thing comes right back in, where, you know what I'm saying? They're going to believe me. It's going to make me not feel safe. So I just wanted to say that before you can go, straight on with the house. But I just was sitting thinking, my brain was going.
No, thank you for sharing that. And even, there's the school aspect, but also my mom. My mom is amazing. My mom is great. She's very loving. And I think it's something that she's expressed now. At the time she was, I don't know, mid, like 28, 27.
Right.
And, a lot of these psychological aspects that you just described weren't as there wasn't as much awareness. So I think in some conversations I've had with her as I've gotten older, she wishes she did more to supply that, that safety blanket. Even though it wasn't a blanket, but that, maybe not sending me to school the next day, just making sure that I, secure, moving forward. So that really defined me. But also I will say, I do believe in some sense that happened for a reason. It was just part of my journey, in growth and the things that I've learned. It's easy to look back on life and have a lot of regrets about things, decisions we didn't do, the decisions, to take that job. Because that's what I was doing. Right. I was like, what if I took this job, and what about that job I turned down? And what if I went all out when I played basketball? But I do now. I believe that was supposed to happen. That was just a part of my journey.
I got that's it.
And now I can share that, right? So then I got this job, and I was kind of like, oh gosh, what do I do? And I always like to make sure I don't want to paint the picture that I was just this depressed recluse, like in the house. I had a good life, and I traveled here and there. But when it came to going to work, when I was at work, it was just like I was walking through those doors, and like I was like, it wasn't challenging. I felt like I had more to give. But then I read this book called Positive Intelligence, and that book really shaped my life. It really changed my life because one, it helped me shift my perspective about the world and also myself. And I wasn't internalizing what I looked at as mistakes in the past.
Right.
Let me look forward and just accept, not define my environment or where I was in life as negative so much. But what it also provided me was the insights that, I actually don't want what I thought I wanted. I actually don't want a 9-to-5 traditional career. Like I was like, wait, I actually don't want that. That was just what society and family, like that was what I thought, like we're told we're supposed to go after. And I was like, I don't want that. So then I was like, well, I don't want that. So so then I was like, well, I don't want that, so I don't feel bad for not having that, But then I got into a place where it's like, well, I don't want this though. I don't want to be here. So and also led me on a path of my, started personal development, personal, really going down a path, reading more books and like not drinking as much and not going out as much and and I don't even think it was intentional at the beginning, but just doing different things, just traveling more, which opens your mind. Sure, and maybe 2018, I just kind of got to 2018. I just got to a place where I was like, I cannot be at this job anymore. Like I have to, it was just, I can't be here, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I went to a career coach. I couldn't figure out the next steps. So, I didn't have enough money to quit, but I had a lot of leave left. I had a lot of leave saved up, PTO. So I took 2 months off to go volunteer in Cartagena, Colombia, teaching English. I never lived outside. I traveled some. I never spent more than 2 weeks outside the DC area at that point in my life. I wanted to do something that was of service and just different, and really put myself in a lot of ways, put myself in an uncomfortable but rewarding situation. So and that really just
break out of that safety net.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So that was 4 years ago when I went there, and and that was a life-changing journey and a life-changing experience in a lot of ways. So then, since then it's just kind of like been like, whoa, I've just been trying to hold on. It really excelled a lot of the growth that I've had. Right around that time, I learned about the subject of my book, Redox, which was attached to a product. So I was sharing that a lot. So it just since then I just really just put the ignition into just my growth and personal development and creating new things in my life.
And have you noticed yourself? I know in my own personal journey, but like once you start on that personal development, you start in that mode, and then it's like whether you intend to or not, I call it grow as you grow or go as you grow, people start falling off because either they're growing as well or they're resistant to it. So it's not even like sometimes that you want the relationship to end, but it's just that it's just something that ends up happening because of where you are on your healing and wholeness journey, and like where they are. So that either they fall off on their own or you end up having to release it. But have you noticed that how like the relationships change, and then what you aligning yourself to, all of that changes as well?
Yeah, that's a great point. Because it can get when you're going through a transition, and it has. Yes, I have experienced that. And when you're going through transitions like that, it can feel lonely, at times, until you find your new tribe. Some people describe it, or your new people you just vibe with on a different level, a deeper level. And it doesn't mean you don't have love for people that in your past, or you have really close relationships with. It's just you just see the world different. You don't relate the same.
That's true.
And that's definitely something that I experienced, before this transition. It wasn't overnight. It was very much, and I don't even think I noticed at the time. I was very much, into nightlife and going out having a good time. And slowly I just start cutting back on that. Again, I mentioned I stopped drinking as much. And I kind of like cleared my head a little bit. And as I, start going to workshops and retreats, I just didn't relate to, and the conversations I wanted to have weren't the same conversations that I wanted to have in the past. And and sometimes I felt myself trying to force those, trying to hold on to those relationships. Because you have love for people and they have love for you. And I would be in certain environments and it just like, I'm not sure I belong here anymore.
That is exactly that's exactly like you said, the point right there. You start thinking, do I still belong here? And or if you know that you still belong there, you start thinking as well, like, okay, I've got to figure out a roundabout way to tackle whatever this person is saying, because I don't agree with what they're saying, which is fine. We're free to have our own opinion. However, I can't sit and go along with it. So you're thinking in your head of a way to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Get your opinion, and you know what I'm saying, and line like your new way of living with it so you can express it. Because this is like, no, what you're, we can still hang. Because some situations, like you said, you're just like, I totally don't belong here anymore. And then there's others where there are some things that have been said for so long, and then you're just thinking like, no, but I see differently. I got a new pair of glasses on, and I can't sit
exactly.
and go along with this, and it's like, let me think of a way to kind of get this out to express, because I'm not going along with this anymore. You see what I'm saying? So it's like those type of things that change your whole, and like I said, you don't even realize it. Once you start reading a lot of different things and your mindset starts shifting, everything else automatically start following slowly without you even realizing this happening,
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. And it's for me, and I had to remind myself of this, because, still on the path of growth and development. And sometimes, I get frustrated because it's like, well, why do I'm still thinking this way? Or why, just certain things you're still trying to, work through.
Right.
It's like, I'm not growing fast enough. But then, because it's a steady pace a lot of time. I mean, it can happen like overnight for people. It's a steady pace, but you're not noticing the shift. But then when I reflect back on my past and the person I was just even 2 years ago, it's like, oh wow, no, I've changed. I mean, I don't even recognize myself anymore. And I even had friends comment on that. Some of the friends who I might not, communicate with as much. Just maybe some of the things they see on social media, or when we do connect. It's like you're a completely different person.
Right.
So it's like, okay, it
just ends up, like you said, it just happens overnight. Now, what do you think when it causes, and I know we pretty much hit on this, so I'm not going to even ask that question about the disconnection in relationships, because we just talked about the growth and all of that. For what I will ask you though is your definition of a toxic relationship, and then why do you think that people stay in that for so long?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would, my definition of a toxic relationship, I'll use my experience. This is, this can mean a lot of things, and I'll try to elaborate. But relationships that aren't serving me, in some form or fashion, and that can be, a lot of times, at least when I think of toxic relationship, I immediately go to like personal, romantic relationships, but also like friendships, that aren't serving. So back to, we start to have a disconnection from people that we were close to, how people communicate, how they treat you, how maybe not respecting where you are, the growth that you've had. In some ways, even just their different perspective in life, or maybe how they react to different things, doesn't mean that. So, toxic, I think a lot of times, like, this person is toxic. Like, this person is, this person is, bad, or this person is not good, or this person is harming you, and that, it can mean that, that could be the dynamics. But for me, it's been like, just where I'm at, my perspective on the world doesn't mean it's right. That's just where I'm at with how I see the world and myself, and how I want to react, and how I want to communicate with other people. Someone else's perspective is different, and where they are, and it doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just different for me. And being in an environment such as that, or communicating with individuals that maybe not want to show the same respect for others, that's not serving me, or the kind of conversations that conversations they want to like have, like the kind of things you want to talk about. Maybe it's talking about other people, or
right.
right, which is and judging other people, or how we react in the social situations to something we find disagreeable. Like I want to, as a worker, I'm not saying I'm perfect at those things, but I want to represent myself I want to show up a certain way. That's what I'm striving for.
Right.
And a toxic relationship, in my experience, can be where where me and another individual are so out of alignment that it's not serving me to place myself in that environment or sphere.
Yep. Wow, I totally agree with that. As going back to the alignment again, that you just said you're not in alignment, and making me think about even like as I was talking about with growing, how you're no longer in alignment with that person. And so then, it's like it kind of falls off, whereas before the growth happens, it's like whatever they say, even if you don't totally agree with it, we'll keep on with the relationship, because it's almost like sometimes we make an idol out of whatever small amount of value we're getting, whatever value we're getting from it. We make an idol out of that, and we make an idol out of the history of the relationship. I've known David since, we were in kindergarten. You know what I mean? We went to kindergarten together. We were in the same center, and we went and played in the sandbox and on the seesaws and the merry-go-round. So then you want to hold on to it because you knew him from the, the sandbox, so to speak, right? And then it's like, okay, there's Susan, but her mother and my mother, they were in mom's groups together when we were little. So I want to hold on to that. See what I'm saying? So it's like you hold on to it because of the history of it, whatever value they're giving you, which 9 times out of 10, especially in a relationship that's toxic, it'll end up being where you might be getting 2 to 10% value, and then 90 to 92% of toxicity, or 98% toxicity. But because that little bit of value they're giving you, some resource you're getting from them, because of the fact you don't have the means to get that resource yourself, so you'll just keep it going. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because you had that bond,
right. Bond. There you go.
Yeah, you have that bond, and it could be, that person loves you.
Right. Yes.
That person loves you, and it. And they helped you, and they they looked out for you in different times in your life, and you have a genuine care and love for each other. But
there you go.
You so, and it's hard to let it, and for me it can be really hard to let that go, because of that experience you've had with that person,
right?
That the just the love that they have for you. But I've had situations, very difficult situations. I would even, maybe that to this day still I'm trying to work through in some ways. But I know, but every time I put myself back in that, just experience that in people, it's just kind of a reminder, you just gotta cut the cord very hard.
I know exactly what you mean. Like you said, cutting the cord, because what happens, like you said, you've got that history there, you got those memories there, you got whatever value they're giving you, but it's so much toxicity that that if you stay in it, you're going to, just by default, because you're hanging with this person, they're bleeding out And so some of their blood is getting out, it's getting on you, because it's kind of like, I always use this example. You know, I used to watch Tom and Jerry as a kid, and there was one time where somebody took a pitchfork and they punctured Tom in his bottom, and it was all these different holes. So he had been drinking water, water started coming out of his bottom, right? So if it's a person that's toxic and they've got toxins, emotional, spiritual, mental toxins leaking out of them, out of those holes, it's going to get on you because you're hanging with them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like being in a home that's got black mold. You can't think you're going to be in that home, in that environment, and nothing's going to happen to you if it's just completely infected with black mold. You see what I'm saying? And this person is walking around, and just picture them like with Tom and Jerry with holes in them, and they're just completely like bleeding out all of their issues. It's going to get on you. You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of those individuals, they don't understand how to manage the emotions. We all have to learn how to do that. And then some have the situation where it's so bad, like with narcissistic individuals, they have an issue when it comes to regulating their emotions. So that's why they depend upon other people. Other people are like an emotional dumping ground for them / emotional regulator. You see what I'm saying? So you're always going to end up getting the brunt after dealing with them, because if it's something they can't handle. And so what they do is just like, oh, I'll just dump it on him or her. But that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be responsible for our own emotions. We want to create it. You know what I'm saying? That thing. So it can be very interesting when it comes to those dynamics of the relationship dynamics, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's really something, isn't it? When you look at it and you keep, I want to stay in this thing, but what you're holding on to, you've made an idol out of, and you're not getting that much value out of it.
Yeah.
You don't want to let go of whatever it is that's connecting you to that person. And sometimes you're actually so tied to that thing. You see what I'm saying? Where you're entangled in it now. So you don't know how to come out of it. So interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Thank you.
Oh my word. Yes.
Sharing those insights.
Oh my goodness. So now we'll shift gears. I know I had questions, but it's like I'm letting the Holy Spirit just guide
I love
the
it.
conversation.
So
what I'll do is have you to talk about your book and how that can kind of tie into toxic relationships, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I wrote my book. My book is called Life's Biohack. The health secrets of redox signaling. And I use the term life's biohack. So life, we all understand life, what life is, encompasses everything, every plant, animal, insects, trees, plants, everything, bacteria. And biohacking is I would say a niche in the health and wellness field where individuals, use, I say, specific modalities, could be devices, instruments, some, more elaborate than others, and also maybe nutraceuticals, specific supplements. So that's biohack. But I use the term biohack because for my book, because life's biohack, within us, our body makes these things called redox cellular messengers. And these cellular messengers are made inside the body, and they support and optimize the health and function of all life on the planet. So life's biohack. And these cellular messengers are intricate, are the most foundational aspect to how our body stays young, stays healthy, and communicates, I would say, being messengers, all the functions within our body. And I learned about this topic about 4.5 years ago. Like I mentioned, it was a product that has managed this product that contains our cellular messengers so we can replenish them. And about 7 months ago, I was watching a documentary about toxins in the environment and how the use of these toxins correlate to increased disease in humans. So I was like, got really frustrated. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna bring more awareness to this field of health, of redox signaling, and how it supports the body in a really short, digestible read for the readers. Because this redox signaling, most people haven't heard of it, but it's a vast and well-studied area of science. So yeah, just bring more awareness. And it's not about the product, but if the book resonates with people, it speaks to them, they can take that information and perhaps look into how to replenish the cellular messengers so they can keep a sharp mind, keep a strong body, so they can stay active and youthful and stay rejuvenated as they get older.
Right. Oh, wow. That sounds very, very interesting. And my mind is always turning and going, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about, as you're talking about the redox and how the cells and the messages they give and all of that, it even made me think about tying that into when you're in the toxic relationships and individual, when you experience trauma from, like, how to talk about kind of like going back to picturing that house with that black mold, and that individual has been traumatized, right, with that, from that person that's leaking out, so to speak, right, who's bleeding out and leaking out everywhere. And it's like over time, what happens is, because there's this one book called The Body Keeps the Score. So the next thing you know, you've got all this trauma, and we think that it's just like emotional thing, but the whole thing is inside of our bodies and cells that have been changed.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, and to tie it into toxic relationships, to what you just said, you said it perfectly. We're made of cells. That's what our bodies are. And if our cells are communicating properly, functioning, staying regenerated, and this deals with our whole body and our mind,
right?
Our mind balance and healthy, that can, if we're healthy, if our mind is healthy, then we, if I'm healthy, and I'm thinking properly, I can better identify toxic relationships. I can avoid toxic behavior. And specifically, this redox signaling in the body and the supplement helps cells to stay conscious and enlightened, to tie it into a more metaphysical philosophy. So I think if we're staying conscious and enlightened, then we can avoid toxic relationships and avoid being toxic ourselves.
Wow, that is some good stuff. So with that signaling, can you explain that just a little bit more? I just kind of want to get a picture of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I like to use an analogy. So it's kind of like the way to think of. So I'll start with our body. So in our cells, we're made of cells. It has to. There's communication, right? It has to. Cells communicate with each other. So they can identify damaged cells. So they can identify cells that need to be replaced and regenerated. And a good way to think about it is a cut, right? So when we get a cut on our hand, we just, it heals, it repairs. When we're young, it does that very quickly, much quicker than, it slows down as we get older. But we don't probably never think about, how does the body know how to repair that tissue, repair those cells, to close it and heal it. There has to be some sort of signaling or communication within the body. And these redox cellular messengers are foundational to that communication in the body. So they're kind of like mailmen that go around delivering vital information that needs to be acted on, so to keep us healthy, to keep us strong, to identify cells that start to get mutated, communicate, tells our immune system where it needs to go in the body, utilize antioxidants. It's just real vast. In I think it's chapter 6, I kind of identify 13 to 14 areas in the body that science has identified. This system, this redox system, plays a role in anything where from fertility, aging, exercise.
Okay.
Yeah, everything. Yeah.
Wow. So this whole system, I like the way you put it then, as far as like thinking about it as little mailmen, delivering mail, like at the different stations, so to speak, and communicating that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good analogy I like to use is, so say we have a car, right? So a car is the car, the engine might be, I don't know, the heart, and the tires are the arms and legs.
Right.
And fuel, fuel and oil, and coolant, the car needs those to run efficiently. But those aren't the car, right? That's kind of like nutrients, right? Mother Nature, God put nutrients on the earth,
right,
to nourish it. Knew that we would need these things so we can flourish and be healthy.
Okay.
And it's kind of like the oils, they're important, but they're not part of the car. But there's thing, when we turn the car on, there's a signal, right? We got the warn, we have the gas indicator. There's a system of communication. So that indication can be on the panel. And as it lowers, it has to be some sort of signal to the electronics. And we get those annoying warning lights that something needs to be addressed in the car. It needs to be, it needs a tune up or what have you. There's a signal, right? There's a signal like, hey, there's something going on in here. So that's what these redox cellular messengers do. They are, they are the part of the body. And so this redox supplementation is not like nutrition. It's actually restoring. It's almost like replacing a part in the car. It's replacing a system in our body that grows deficient as we age, so our body can better, identify, signal to itself like, hey, this needs to be fixed over here. This needs to be addressed. And it keeps everything, running as it should. So now we can stay, quickly. So it's quickly regenerating our cells. It's keeping us strong, keeping our brain sharp and active. So when we get older, it can allow us to, I like to say, stay active, stay more physically active as we get older.
Okay. Wow, that is really something. And
there's more than that, but I'm not allowed to say all that.
Say it again now.
I said it does more than that as far as people that might have health issues, but I'm not allowed to, say it does this and does that.
Right. No, I got what I totally get that. But yeah, I like the way that you described that, as far as like, okay, here's the signal goes off. This what needs to be taken care of. Like whether it's like you said, when it comes to a car, perfect example, your oil needs to be changed, right? Your car is overheating. You know what I'm saying? It's like the temperature. Yeah. So all of those different things, let you know that this needs to, this attention in this area, this type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And just to show you how the Holy Spirit works, you're explaining about like the mailman and the communication and dropping off little, letters along the way and packages, so to speak. And like you said, the whole signaling process. And it made me think about, okay, you say it's redox signaling. That's the word for it, right? Redox.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So then it made me think about the virtue signaling when you're in a toxic relationship,
there
right?
You go.
And then you've got a person that's a self-righteous cerebral narcissist, right? You've got that self-righteous side that loves, they're loving laws and rules, right? And then the cerebral side, I'm a know-it-all. I know everything. As a matter of fact, I know more than God do. So you got that together for the self-righteous cerebral narcissist. So then you've got that self-righteous side, the self-righteous part of the self-righteous cerebral narcissist. They do virtue signaling. And so with that virtue signaling, what those individuals will do, they will signal the different areas like we talked about with the car. The light comes on, the oil needs to be changed. Okay, the temperature gauge shows your car is overheating. You see what I'm saying? You're low on some other type of oil. So they will signal which areas they think that you need to change. And so it's very subtle. And it's like after they mention it, you're thinking, wait a minute, something seems off about what they said. Just like we talked about communication and then tell either if you're thinking you don't belong or you need to speak up and say what you think about that, even if you do. So I'm going to give an example. So if you're talking to someone that's a self-righteous narcissist, whether it's self-righteous narcissist or self-righteous cerebral narcissist, 9 times out of 10, that's what it is. But anyways, when you're having a conversation and they do virtual signaling, like say, for instance, I'm talking to you and I'm telling you that I've gone and purchased a small stereo system because I didn't want my whole entire house focused on electronics and luxury. So then what is that? What am I telling you? The hidden message is something's wrong with you if you have a stereo system that's really big and it's taking up your living room. You see what I'm saying? If I can like those individuals, when they do that and they've got that spirit inside of them of self-righteous narcissism, it's like there's an energy that comes with it. Just like when you talk about the Redox signaling, there's an energy that comes with it. So when they see it, they say what they say, and it's so subtle. But then after it's said, you sit there like, something don't feel, something don't feel right about what they just said. And then when you with a group of people, you'll notice that other people in the group are kind of looking a little bit puzzled. So the signal is like, for the rest of you guys that got big stereo systems, you know what I'm saying? This means that you're not righteous enough. You know, this means you're not showing. So you need to go down to what I have, this small system. So for some reason, they look at those type of individuals that's infected, so to speak, I would say, with that spirit. They become obsessed with the size of things. Like if you have a really big TV, then all of a sudden that means that that's what your life is centered around, which we know size doesn't have to do with anything, because we could have a 12-inch TV and watch it for 50 hours.
Right.
Understand what I'm saying? That could be our idol, and we can have literally an 80 to 100-inch TV on the wall and rarely watch TV.
Yeah, exactly.
But for some reason, it goes back to me and you talking about that worldview, some kind of way. It's like a combination of their worldview, upbringing, childhood, false doctrine, and theology. They've got this twisted sense of how you're supposed to live for God, if that makes sense. And so then another thing that they will signal, like that was an example with electronics. So another example would be they would tell you about a grocery store, right? And this grocery store has a lot of good things, right? And it's like on the cheaper end. So they will talk about that so much that it's like it's letting you know for the rest of the group, you're missing out on something. See, this here, I'm signaling to you right here, this is a problem. So if you're going anywhere else other than this grocery store, something's wrong with you because it's not showing that you're righteous enough. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I like, I appreciate how you, just everything's communication, right? Everything is signaling, everything is communication, and like this redox signaling is very subtle, and what you described is, that virtue signaling and be very subtle, but it's something. Something like, okay, like what's
right?
The vibe you get, right?
It's the vibe, right? It's like something don't feel right here.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It's like everybody's sitting there in the group. If it's a group thing, you're just like, wait a minute, what? Somebody's saying something but it's like nobody dares to outwardly question this individual that's saying it, if that makes sense. Yeah, so there's something how both systems, the redox signaling, and you got the virtual signal. It's something that's done that's subtle, but it's still signaling there's a problem here and you need to fix it. And if you're not paying attention to this problem, there's going to be something that's going to be wrong. And see what I'm saying? With virtual signals, like something's wrong with you if you're not doing what I'm doing, because look at how virtuous I am.
What?
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're talking
about. So it's really amazing. And then just one more point on that before we go to the fire questions. In scripture, you had the Pharisees and the way that they did virtue signaling in scripture is that they would wear these large prayer boxes that they call phylacteries.
Mm-hmm.
Would wear them around their wrists or around their head and have them hanging with scripture verses in it, over enlarged.
Wow.
Now, not like the regular size. They had to say, see, look at how good I am. Look at how holy I am. So they had these over enlarged prayer boxes hanging either from their arms, their wrists, or their head. Now, can you imagine how ridiculous that looked? But this was their signal. Look, he's so holy. And then they also would wear overly enlarged tassels, extended tassels hanging from their prayer shawls. So that was another way of saying, look at me, something's wrong with you. You need to fix this area. You know? Yeah. That's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. Wow. That sounds like a sight.
And that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, as I'm reading scripture, I'm trying to picture this, like, why would someone want to walk around with something that big? And it's like, duh. You know, I'm virtuous, I'm holy. You see what I'm saying? And you got to get with the program. You know, there's something wrong with you. Oh, my word. But like I said, for some reason, size is still one of them. Like I gave you the example of electronics. So it's like, okay, but with them, it's like I'm holy because I got big prayer, you know, these big old prayer boxes hanging off of me and these long tassels hanging from my prayer shawl. So that makes me more virtuous, so to speak. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just amazing, I tell you. Oh, my word. So we'll get to some of the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Then what I'll do is have you to let the audience know how they can get in touch with you, how they can get your book and other products and services that you offer. Okay. First rapid fire, what's your favorite kitchen gadget?
Oh, my favorite kitchen gadget. Oh, that's a good question. Oh, man, my favorite kitchen gadget is probably, I guess the knife. A knife? Is that a gadget? Knife.
Hey, it could be a gadget, knife, spoon, any of that.
Knife. Because it's I say knife, specifically a sharp knife.
Okay, you like a sharp knife.
Yeah, because dull knives, a lot of times I can't do a lot with that. But I always I find myself always just cutting the sweet potato or just cutting something. I'm always trying to find, that's the thing I'm always looking for the most in my kitchen is a sharp knife.
Okay. And it's nothing worse than not having one, isn't it? And you really cut something and you're like, man, this is jacked up. Yeah. So a sharp knife is important. Now, what about some songs on your playlist?
So I just thought of something, and my partner Ruthie would be like, "You didn't say this for gadget. I gotta go back really quick." This might be my favorite because it's my blender.
Ah, your blender.
Because I love smoothies. We make smoothies.
Right.
I love my smoothies. So I would have to go. I have to say my blender. I have to say the blender.
The blender takes precedence over the knife now.
Yeah, yeah.
The knife is in second place. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Because I can still get some stuff done without the sharp knife. It'd be difficult, but I can't make smoothies without my blender. So
that is true. Right. You gotta have a blender for if you're making smoothies a lot. So can you think of any songs or a favorite song or a couple of songs that you like to listen to?
Sure. Oh man, I have a few songs that I like to listen. One is called Beautiful Music. I can't remember the artist's name. I've been listening to a lot of beautiful music. Fix You by Coldplay is one of my favorite songs.
Okay.
What else? There's a lot of songs is just I don't even know that. I just hear it and start listening to it. What else? Those are two that stand out, right? That come off the Bali music. It's called Bali music, not good music.
Bali music. Okay. Wow. That's pretty cool. And what about 3 books that you think you can't live without?
Positive Intelligence, what I mentioned earlier, that saved my life. Changed my life. Changed my life. The Untethered Soul. That's a book.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's by Michael Singer.
Okay.
It's a book about just being not allowing our thoughts to control our actions and decisions. It's a spiritual book. It's a spiritual.
It sounds like it. That's probably why I've heard it. I'm, thinking of all the different things I've read. That title sounds very familiar.
Yeah. And another one is Mach 2 with Your Hair on Fire. That's a book that I love. It's from one of my mentors, Richard Brooke. it's a personal development book, a short one,
Right.
just about, nothing new, but just in a different way, just about, how our life experiences shapes how we see the world, shapes our beliefs about ourselves and the story we tell in our head, and how to change that story, and what we can create in our life if we change the story in our head.
Yep.
Tools like, affirmations, videos, different, things along in that nature that allow us to change the story in our head, essentially.
Oh yeah, for sure. Wow. And it's something you mentioned that because it's going back to like when we start talking about, your story and how you shift. Yeah. Oh wow, that's really something. So what do the answers to those questions say about who you are as a person? Your favorite kitchen gadget, the songs playlist, and the books you can't live without. What does that say about you as a whole?
Wow, you know what? I didn't even. I want to think. Does that match up? And I think it does. So I have a saying. It's called like my slogan or my saying, and it's be healthy, be inspired, and live free.
Yes.
And,
Oh my word. That
well,
is awesome.
be healthy might not be in there, but just to be inspired and live free. But we can change the story in our head. All those books talk about growth, coming, and when we find something that find things in our life that inspire us. For travel, it's health. It could be it could be an instrument, it could be music, it could be coaching, it could be a podcast, whatever. It allows us to, I found, to live free, and that can take a lot of different forms and shapes for everybody. But you're designing and creating your own life, and by changing the story in our head, not a lot of times our thoughts can lead us in the wrong direction. We listen to the wrong thoughts, I'll say. And being positive people.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. What about some parting words of wisdom that you would like to leave with the audience?
I'll share this. I was in Ecuador in the end of last year in December, and I came across a real wise man, and we were having a conversation, and he said that he thinks that in some form or fashion we're all here to serve, be of service to others, and there's 8 billion people on the planet, so there's a lot of opportunity to be of service to others. So and I believe that that doesn't have to be what we do as our profession. Serving people can be letting people over in the car, into the lane they're trying to get over, or keeping the door, just smiling. But I think if we all set that intention as we go out in our days in our life, just be of service in some form or fashion to other people, to strangers, even, then the world would be a better place.
It definitely would be a better place. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can. I'm on Facebook at Ricardo.Wilkins. Instagram, I am Ricardo Wilkins. My new book, you can go to ricardosbook.com. They'll take you to my Amazon site. And, I also have a site, ricardowilkins.com, which talks about some of the things I do in travel.
Oh, wow. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. This has really been a blessed conversation.
There was a son. He was devoured by earth. There was a God. They call him the Father. And there was a means to make a this hole that I've dug for me. He made a valley of grace where things would change, and maybe they'd take up the cross high again. The valley of grace was never the same after he had died. The love that refines. There's no sense in trying to do it on my own. He gave more than I could have known. He turned those valleys into places to learn, instead of burn and perish away. And nights never so cold without his grace. How could I say that I've seen the world from his great love? How could I know what he could love? How would I've seen what he had in store for me if I didn't give up and let him be my valley of grace, where things would change, and maybe they'd take up the cross high again. The valley of grace never was the same after he had died. The love that refines. So much I wish I could give back, but I'm not intact to be sharing all of that. You took the price to give me that life, and now it's never gonna fade away. When I see I need more of him, he whispers the sweetest of mercies upon my ears, and I won't go back the way it was again, 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 and now a valley of grace where things would change. I've seen the lights of valley of grace where things have changed. Oh, I've seen so much for me.